Okay.
Just a G
I'm
council.
going to stop for prayer before we begin our meeting.
Is it time to go?
Yeah. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this committee of the whole meeting, and we're grateful for this community and for the opportunity to serve, and we pray that Thou would bless us with wisdom as we deliberate those items on our agenda this evening. We're grateful. God, elements that are not in our peace and well-being of our community. And these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Our committee of the whole meeting to order. I'd like to welcome our media people, Corey with the television, and Kim Peavoy for volunteering for that position. She does it voluntarily, and appreciate that you do that for us. And appreciate Jill being here to take notes. And so as we will begin, our rules are always respect each other, manage our communication devices, and be present here. So we'll respect those rules. We'll begin with our agenda. I have a few additions, some minor ones. One, along with the powwow committee terms of reference, I'm going to add A1, and we'll just cover a letter of support for a grant application when we're doing that. So under powwow 7A, just going to add A1 there. On other business 7, add 7H. I just want to touch on this Christmas Lights Festival dinner that's this Friday. Dennis was just talking to who will be there, but I just want to mention a couple of things that to do with that. And then we will have just one in-camera item, a powwow committee member. So we'll just add one in-camera item. So that's all. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add to the agenda? So I'll just need a motion then. Councillor Peavoy?
Move to adopt the agenda.
As amended?
As amended.
Okay, great. All in favor? Perfect, thank you. Okay, we have no delegations. If you've had a chance to read the minutes, anyone would like to have any discussion or motions? Or
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes
okay.
as presented of February 2nd, 2016.
Okay. Councillor Bengry has moved to adopt the minutes. All in favor? Yeah, okay, great.
And just a note, that new format looks crisp. I like it.
Yeah. I like
It's a nice little format on the minutes.
Okay, so, all right, so we have our minutes adopted. So the next item on our discussion is under number 6A, bylaw and policy, fire costs and collection. So just to give you a little background on this, actually under the last term of council, the county passed a bylaw to allow the fire department to collect, from the residents in the county, because insurance will often cover those costs. And at the time, the council, our town council, didn't make any motions to pass any such bylaw. I asked Jeff if he would get some information on insurance, on if insurance companies generally will cover the cost of firefighting. And he checked with a couple of insurance companies, and it is pretty much standard in their homeowner policy. They will pay up to $10,000 for firefighting costs. So that is
Up to how much?
Up to $10,000.
Some were 5, Councillor.
Some 5, yeah. So the one company, they had two levels, either a 5,000 or a 10,000. One of them said they might have a deductible, possibly, on the 10,000. Yeah.
But the other didn't.
The other one didn't.
But this applies to county residents, depending on where they live or anything?
No, this is in
This
town.
is town.
Okay.
Now
We're
insurance
discussing
in the
in town.
county, according to what Jeff found out.
See, that's what sparked this whole thing, is
Yeah.
that county billing.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
it's also an issue we have in town.
so
We
yeah.
have one issue, yeah.
Now, Jeff said that the fire department regularly can and does collect from insurance companies anyway for firefighting costs. So whether we, now what would be the ramifications of if we were to pass a bylaw, and how does it affect the requisitions, to the fire department? This is probably where it's going to affect us, is how we are requisitioned, for firefighting costs between us and the county. So, you can speak to that.
I think the key here is if we're going to entertain passing a bylaw that the town will cover uninsurable costs, then it just needs to be consistent with the county. And the method doesn't need to be consistent necessarily. They may choose to just pay the authority and deal with it however they may. And we may choose to pay the authority and put it against taxes or whatever we choose. And Kelsey Becker-Brooks brought that up in her letter too, that it needs to be consistent, because if we're collecting and then giving to the authority, but say the county or the villages are collecting, but then just anticipating it's kept off of their requisitions, for example, or holding it back, offsetting requisitions, we're gonna have a bit of a wreck. So we would have to come to some agreement between us that how we're dealing with requisitions is consistent. My feeling is, right now, the fire department uses those charges as revenue to offset requisition. So it goes in the revenue column, they have kind of an anticipated amount annually, and then they requisition the difference. So it's probably 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you keep it and offset your requisition, you're just gonna pay more requisition.
Councillor Bengry?
I don't think that the fire department uses that to offset requisitions. I think they just requisition us regardless. That's a money-making thing.
Who's on the fire, Dennis?
I have never heard them ever comment that it's to offset requisitions. I've never heard that conversation. I mean, that would be an assumption, and maybe we need to ask that question
I think it would be a good thing.
to find that, to make sure on that, so.
Okay, maybe you can make a note
Yeah.
to.
Well,
I've got that here too.
See, Councillor Barfuss is going to be going there, so
Okay,
maybe we need to have him.
all right, he will show up hopefully here, that we can.
And I'll ask Danny as well.
I think
Yeah, would you
another
do that?
part of that question is, I'm sure they're offsetting requisition because they only collect what they need over and above what they have. So, but the question is, whose municipality is paying for whose uncollected fee? And if that's just added to that one municipality's requisition, or are we all sharing the burden of that uncollected fee?
We're all sharing it right now. So for example, if I'm not mistaken, and I apologize, I was gonna get their budget. If I went through some old agendas, I think we'd find it. I think there's $14,000 in 2016 being distributed per capita in uncollected fees and charges, which we could have a debate as to whether bad debt should come back as a requisition, because I would make a bit of a debate that it shouldn't, but it is. And so that's how they're dealing with it. They're taking a portion and they're just saying, here's the total amount we're writing off, for lack of a better term, even though they don't get the tax credit that a for-profit would. Mostly because they shouldn't have a bank account, but that's another story. And then they're divvying up per capita. So yes, we're paying a portion of other municipalities' bad debt, which in a all-for-one, one-for-all system, you could justify. But I'm not sure that's how it should be working, because we're not normally the largest contributor to that issue. In fact, we've never been one until there's a potential for one now, but historically, we've never been a contributor to the bad debt.
Yeah. So the other question is, if one entity does provide, cover those costs, should that go towards the requisition? So that's another question. Should that be counted towards?
My feeling is no, because if all of us participating municipalities agree that there will never be bad debt in the authority, okay, we will agree that at the end of any year, any outstanding debts will be a check from the municipality to the authority will be written, then they should never be charging for that bad debt. You know, we should never be getting requisitioned for bad debt and unclaimed debt.
Mhm.
And so it would always be assumed that there'd be no outstanding accounts receivables at the end of every year.
Okay,
Councillor Bengry had a comment here I didn't recognize.
No, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay.
here is an issue that happened in the past. We had a fair amount that was unpaid from the blood tribe. Danny came on board and Danny managed to collect some of the money. So what happened to those funds all of a sudden that already have been requisitioned in the past, the year or 2 years before? What happened now that the money has been recouped?
See, there was about an $80,000 debt, and I think he reduced it to around $20,000, didn't he?
Is correct.
Yeah.
So that is another question. I'd like to know, how do they work that new revenue? And where does it show up on their budget? Because I've never seen it.
See, now that was the question I was going to ask, but also I'm going to say that we've never had this problem in town other than just this past one that's got us keenly aware of this. And the individual did have insurance, but the insurance
Will not pay.
will not pay. So we cannot make a bylaw and claim
Afterwards.
that past
No.
debt.
It
This is
cannot
from
be.
here on.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I
So
read the
there's a
letter.
few questions there that we need to come to understand a little bit better.
You go in, then you.
Yeah, so two things. First question is, really, what's relevant to us then is whether or not our town is going to impose a fine to the property for uncollected, thing. And then my second question, and this one for me is a little more pressing, just because I've seen it with my own eyes, and that is that, let's say you have a kitchen fire, and oh my goodness, the stove's on fire, right? You call it in, and they show up with a truck, but all they had to do was run in with their little fire hydrant and they put it out. Next thing I know, I go outside, and for whatever reason, and I've seen this, there's now 3 vehicles there, there's 12 guys standing around, and this is a training op. And they're charging me for 3 hours somehow.
At $400
At
an hour.
$400 per vehicle.
Per vehicle,
I didn't
per
ask
hour.
for 3 vehicles.
Yeah.
I called in some help, but I didn't ask for 3. I didn't see that. That was a fictional scenario, but I'll tell you the scenario I saw with EMS. I saw a guy break his foot. All they had to do was drive him 2 blocks to the hospital. They came to my house to pick him up, threw him in that ambulance, and he stayed there for an hour and a half in front of my house. Next thing I know, a second ambulance pulls in. It's a training op. There's 12 people involved, and they billed him for 2 ambulances. And by the way, he sat there for an hour and a half. I kept knocking on the ambulance door. I'm like, could I just drive him to the hospital? It'd take me a minute. I could have him at that hospital in a minute. What they were waiting for is Lethbridge to say, no, bring him here versus, take him to Cardston. And I'm like, well, I'll just take them to Cardston, they can sort that out in their waiting room there, And then meanwhile, the engine's running and they're charging this guy. They're billing. So that kind of thing gets way carried away. So if we have a bylaw, I want it to be reasonable to where as a municipality, I don't want to bill this person for 3 fire trucks when all they had was a little grass fire that started to scatter and it took them 6 minutes to put it out. So that's a big fear for me, right? Because I know how inappropriate that can get real fast. And it's not fair that we put the burden on the property owner for that.
Well, that is an issue. And of course, on Danny's side, because I asked that question before, is that he says that we want to be sure that we'd rather overreact than underreact. But it does become an issue. I mean,
I don't mind if they overreact, I just don't want them to overbill. They don't need 2 ambulances for a small room.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Dennis, could you
Let Councillor Bengry, I gotta rephrase my question
Okay.
in my mind.
All right.
Being in Lethbridge a lot, I see when there's an ambulance dispatched, there's usually a fire truck, an EMS unit, rescue unit dispatched also. Then all of a sudden, you'll see the rescue unit returning to the base, but the ambulance is still out there. So they dispatch both units, but I think whoever is on the scene makes that call and calls off whatever, return to base and so I'd like to know how that's built. Because they're actually dispatching so many men per rescue truck, and and fire truck.
It came to my mind, don't interrupt me now.
Okay.
I'm an old man. Anyways, the hypothetical scenario on this recent fire north of us here, can that fire bill be added to his taxes, and so the insurance wouldn't pay that if it was? Okay, that's
Yeah.
all I want to know.
That would be retroactive, and we don't
can't do it.
have a bylaw. And as Jeff explored other communities, I guess Pincher Creek was the only, not Pincher, or Crow's Nest Path.
No, Pincher Creek.
Oh, Pincher Creek was the only one that actually had that
Had a bylaw.
bylaw in place to collect from, to add that to property taxes.
Yeah, we found some others not regionally. Jill found one was at Bonnyville, Jill, is that correct? So we did find some others provincially, but we couldn't identify whether they were operating as an authority or as a shared.
That one was regional.
Bonnyville was a regional authority, so we did find Bonnyville as well. I'd emailed, I told Councillor Creed, I'd emailed a number of our neighbors from Raymond South, Pincher Creek, and Pincher Creek was the only one that responded that they had such a bylaw.
It's right there, Chairman.
So, yeah, go ahead.
One thing, all these points have been perfectly apt, and just to tangle the web a little bit more. We talked last meeting about us drafting a policy which would allow us to charge less to non-arm's length parties. Would it be the expectation under this type of a bylaw that the same would apply? So instead of charging $400 an hour per machine, what were the actual costs of the response? So if we have to go collect it and put it against taxes, is it reasonable that we're collecting $400 an hour when we'd all agree that's not the cost? Because they're asking us to provide a non-arm's length rate, quid pro quo. You know, do we ask for the same based on if we're going to accept that bill? Now again, it's rare that we accept that bill, and we're going to open a whole can of worms that insurance companies are going to say, well, you charge them that much less, but you want to charge me this? So that's going to become problematic. It's a very, very tricky scenario, to be sure.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, do we want to touch it, or are we have an appetite to draft a bylaw to put charges against property taxes for fire billing? I guess that's pretty much the crux of the question.
Because we can draft and debate for a while. There's no issue there. We could draft something and then debate its practicality. But
are we chasing gophers?
Okay, we'll let Councillor Barnes before he doesn't mind changing.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we'll go to
So
the-
in the past, Jeff,
Yeah.
in the past, I don't think we've had a lot of this type of scenario happen. The insurance is covered for the most part, any fires in town. This was a kind of an exception to the rule because there was nobody living in the house. It was a rental unit, nobody living in the house at the time of the fire, and I don't know whether they've decided whether it was arson or what yet, but when the insurance company says they're not going to pay it, then they're definitely not going to pay it, and they've gone the rounds with it, and so that's what the established was, that they're not going to pay it. But I don't think we've had many of those that I can think of.
Councillor Edmonds, and then I'll get
Do you know of any, Jeff?
not in my time, but I'm not intimately involved with that either, but I don't think there's been many, no.
So it's not a big problem.
The only issue I see is it is a bigger problem in the county,
Yep.
and I'd like to see us be relatively consistent.
Well, the county has a different scenario though,
Yeah.
Jeff.
I'll get you.
They have a
Agreed.
totally different scenario, because they have a mileage restriction that the insurance company does. If it's so many miles out of town, they have a ratio, and once it gets to that mileage thing, they will not cover it anymore, because it's already, the fire's already gone too far, and it's a write-off. They won't cover it.
Let's see.
So it's hard to justify doing the same thing as the county.
Yeah, because there's travel, yeah, okay.
I don't think there'd be a problem having a two-tier thing with the insurance company, because these restoration companies, when they come in and clean up your mess, they ask you, are you putting it through the insurance company? And if you say no, they give you a better price. So there already is
Yeah.
a two-tier thing in the insurance
Okay.
charges.
Okay. Councillor Maggie. And then.
I'd like to know how the county does it with the town of McGrath. Because McGrath is in the same situation as Cardston with the county, working with the county. And I know McGrath charges, but they don't charge out of in the county area, so, you know, what's happening there, I think we gotta be careful.
Nice to know that.
McGrath doesn't.
Yeah.
You checked McGrath, right?
They had, if I could find the email, but in short, they had no bylaw with which to collect non-insurable losses, no.
Okay. All right.
My concern is that we're part of an authority. And if we're not consistent among each partner in that authority, sooner or later it's going to create an issue when it comes to requisitioning. And that is why we need to find a way to have something that's consistent through the 4 communities involved in the authority. That's the only purpose, is the requisitioning. Because what will happen is that some will have to see it added to their taxes and some won't. So it has to be consistent somewhere.
Yeah, well,
Whatever it is that we decide,
Yeah.
and maybe we need to take it at the intermunicipal, I don't know.
that's exactly what I was gonna
That's what
suggest.
I was wondering,
Take it to
yeah.
the intermunicipal, because obviously, we've gotta have our heads together to come up with some kind of a
It has to be a
scenario that's
consistent
absolutely.
bylaw,
Yeah.
because it's too complex,
Well,
because
and-
requisition is attached to it.
It's been brought up at other meetings, when there's fires in the county where some people have refused to pay, they say, well, a friend of mine in town had a fire, and he didn't have to pay. Insurance covered his, it's not fair that my insurance won't cover me. So they have a hard time collecting some of those, you know, those fire
Well,
costs out in the county.
In the county, you know, just what Jeff found with the homeowner insurance, they'll cover their house, but they won't cover
Their
a barn
fields,
or a bale fire
Right.
or something else.
Yeah.
So there's those issues. So, see, Councillor Peavoy and then Councillor Bengry.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that, you know, we talked a little bit about how much of a problem is this really, and if it's not a big problem, maybe we shouldn't worry about it. But until that day that it is a problem, and we didn't have a policy in place.
Yeah.
So I think it is our duty as elected officials to get a policy and make sure it's equitable. And, you know, anytime we're dealing with intermunicipal issues, it's always nice to have a community in that group who stands up as the leader and says, hey, we're taking the initiative on this. We've created a draft, a proposal, you know, and then kind of get the thing moving. And maybe it's us that is that leader on this issue. So that's probably the case.
All right, Councillor Bengry.
It's already created a problem. Because here we had accounts collectible, receivable. Those accounts were received where we still requisitioned, leaving those accounts receivable monies in their general account. That's the question now. If they had at one time X amount of dollars and they collected 2/3 of that, where did that money go? And why wasn't our requisition affected?
Well, we need to figure it out.
Reduced.
Exactly, we need to know. Because, so the mindset is if we create a bylaw, is everybody gonna be on board that every time that those trucks are dispatched, that is not an income to the EMS to put into their general account, is to offset, you know, to show an offset in the requisition, and it needs to be shown as such that, hey, Cardston has generated this kind of money through insurance, and now, because of that, you know, we can lower the requisition. But if you lower the requisition for Cardston, who do you lower for?
Yeah.
Everybody else.
Yeah. Well, what I think they do is basically they look at their total budget and anything that they've collected counts partly towards their budget, and then they requisition the rest, just like we do with our property tax. Seems like there's two ways that we could handle this. You know, one was suggested the IMDP, and we discussed it with the county, but that only covers us and the county. And we do have, with our total fire department, we cover the county, ourselves, we've got also Glenwood and Hill Spring.
There should
And
be-
McGrath.
There should
Well,
be in there.
McGrath, they have their own, they have their own fire department, so they will deal separately with the county, but I'm thinking we can either handle it with the IMDP or the EMS and give our representatives to EMS instructions from our council of what our feeling is.
So what happens when our EMS is dispatched to the reserve?
And that's another
That
issue.
charge.
I mean, we,
Okay.
what do we have with the reserve? We have
What we have with the reserve,
An
they
MOU?
pay, yes, and
Yes.
a kind of an MOU, they pay $2,000 per month
Right.
for fire, up to a certain amount of hours of fighting fires, and the rest is billed differently. For example, with the college,
See, that's
That went up.
uninsurable.
there still is some issues because the insurance could not cover all the cost either. So here is a difficult point also.
I think there we basically collect whatever we can through
Yeah.
the arrangements we have, but, as far as like what we talked about, trying to be consistent, I think we just deal with those entities that are involved with the EMS, which requisitions, us, if we want that consistency in policy but is Glenwood and Hillspring going to also feel that way, participate and pass similar bylaws? So,
That should be at the table, you're right.
so do we do this through like say
Through fire.
IMDP or through our EMS?
Maybe through the fire.
So, okay, let's just kind of get a consensus here. One, do we have an appetite for passing a bylaw to charge to the, property, firefighting cost to the property tax or not? And should we address this through our representative at the EMS committee? So Dave, what's your thoughts?
I think we need a bylaw.
Okay, and have it taken to the EMS?
Well, I think you'll get a biased opinion if you do that.
Well, I mean, to get consistency, do we try to take it there and say this, that we would encourage, well, the county already has a bylaw, right?
I know when I talked to Tyler, they're working on, they're having this same discussion right now too. And I'm not sure what they have that's existing, but I know this is on their table as well.
Because they've had some issues with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Because, just the things that you've mentioned and other
Yeah.
issues, you open a bit of a can of worms, so,
My guess is if they have a bylaw, they're choosing not to enforce it.
not to enforce it. so.
Because I know they're looking at some alternative ways to deal with this. I think there would be agreement that the authority shouldn't have bad debt.
Mhm.
I do think that would be pretty universally agreed, and I think that's to the extent we need to really worry.
Mhm.
How they collect it, well, we could leave that to them, as long as we know consistently we're all on side that there isn't gonna be bad debt at the authority.
Mhm.
But I know they're discussing it right as we speak as well.
Okay, so Mayor Kronen, how do you feel on this?
Well, mine is, I would switch the order of things. I think we need to get consistency among the 4 participants in EMS. And if it means that a bylaw will represent that consistency, then I'm all for it
To the
too.
bylaw, okay?
But I think we need that consistency, whatever it looks like.
One way or another,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I have to agree with the mayor, because I feel like until we have discussed it with the 4 communities in question, we really can't take it back to EMS, because like you said, there's gonna be a biased, opinion on that, which I don't blame them one bit. But I think if we take it to all the parties involved, then we'll get an idea, we'll have a discussion, maybe we need to have a meeting here or something amongst everybody, and decide. It's gonna be their councils that we have to talk with. And until we do that, I don't think we can really do much of it, because there won't be any consistency.
Mhm, okay.
Because every community will have their own their own opinion on it, and so we have to have a consensus somewhere along the line, or it won't work.
Okay, Councillor Peavoy?
Yeah, I agree, we need a bylaw. And so how do we go about that? I agree also that it would be nice to have some consistency. It makes sense that we wouldn't send it first to EMS, although it would be good to maybe have at least their thoughts or a proposal or something. Somebody has to initiate some kind of a draft that then gets discussed. And I know if we put it intermunicipal, I sit on that, that's not the place to originate that conversation. You want to come there with a draft and then make a proposal. So somebody has to have a meeting first of the communities and just saying, hey, send us 2 delegates and we'll sit around the table and come up with something that we think as municipalities that makes sense based on this EMS recommendation. Then we can take that and discuss it from there. Or to intermunicipal, if that's where it's going to go. But the one thing I want to be careful on, once we sort all that out, when it comes back to us and our policy for our residents, again, for me, the big issue there is fairness. I do believe, I mean, if you had a fire on your property and we couldn't collect from you, you probably owe $400 at a minimum, right? But I don't want to ding you for $1,200 just because they got excited and put 12 people in your home, you know?
Yeah.
I want to make it real careful that our policy doesn't make the citizen pay for those decisions of EMS.
Okay, Councillor Bengry?
We need consistency, but we also need a bylaw. But, as far as I'm concerned, we need to bring Danny in here to address the council. Because we have all these concerns, and we can ask him if 6 heads are better than 1. And we can't all expect one person to go to this meeting and come back with all the answers that we're, from the questions we're getting. I'd like to see Danny here, and then we just drill him and say, Danny, what's your ideas and how are you handling it? And, what's happening with this revenue? And where are you taking it? And what's happening with the ambulance services, Because, like you said, if they send 2 ambulances where a half an ambulance is good, then what have we been charged for?
Okay.
Now we need
Okay.
to deal with the
Good.
fire.
All right, so I'm going to go back to Jeff. You've kind of heard, the opinions all around the table here, that we, I think, want consistency. A bylaw might be desirable, but we need to get all of the players on side. So what would you recommend?
If I could ask a question first, why wouldn't the fire board be the conduit back to their councils? Why wouldn't that work?
I'll just bring up the conversation we did have at the EMS. They asked us to come back to council and talk about it.
Yeah.
Because they are concerned, you're right,
Yeah.
absolutely right. But for them to be the ones that make it up, they don't want to.
Yeah, not suggesting
They want
that
the
at all.
councils to make that decision.
No, it's a political issue.
It is a political
as
issue,
well
absolutely.
as it is
Yeah.
a pragmatic need to resolve some kind of
Exactly.
issues we have here.
And I go back to the fact that every community is different. McGrath, Hillspring have a fire hall. They have fire trucks. And so they can respond to a fire quickly. They don't have to have the town and county fire trucks run out there unless it's a multiple alarm fire. But they have the insurance that covers them. The only issue we have is the county, because of the distances. That's the problem.
Okay.
But I still come back to, irrespective of how every municipality collects, it doesn't really matter if we all agree around that table down there that there won't be bad debt. And then we're all left to collect however it is we feel most appropriate. Because I know the county has some concerns about placing those charges against taxes.
Yeah.
Because they become incredibly concrete mandatory expenses to the point you lose your house if you don't pay them.
Yeah.
There's little mercy in putting charges against taxes, right? Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's appropriate, being that the fire board asks you as councillors to come and have this discussion,
If you go back.
do
to
we
the-
draft something and say, here's what we're proposing?
Yes.
What do you think?
Is this something that could be adopted across the board? Or here's some principles that we need to satisfy. How do we do it?
I think it's a good
I also
idea.
don't have any problem with getting a roundtable of councillors either, that's fine.
Yeah.
But how they do it is, in my opinion, somewhat less important than if we agree to do it
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
consistently.
Okay,
So is
so
there?
why don't we put a motion forward to direct administration to put
You mean a recommendation?
principles, yeah, a
oh,
recommendation,
that's right.
principles down regarding collections of bad debts.
Why don't you do
Good
that?
job,
Aaron?
Mayor.
Or.
Let's give them a
Make
policy
motion.
motion.
Okay, so I can put a motion forward. that we-
Recommendation.
Recommendation.
Yeah, a motion to recommend. A motion to recommend to administration to put together a statement regarding a policy and bad debts.
Bad debt for
And
EMS.
recovery of collections of bad debts.
Okay. All right. So we have, a motion to recommend to council to direct administration for drafting a policy on.
Statement,
on-
maybe a statement,
Do
maybe.
we have to take it back to
Or
council?
bylaw.
Can we recommend to administration here?
Well,
Yes, you can.
You wouldn't be adopting any policy.
we wouldn't be
bylaw, right?
adopting, I guess we can recommend that
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
administration.
That's why I said a statement, because
Right.
I did not.
Yeah, we'll do up some
think-
kind of guiding statement and maybe a draft, taking Pincher Creek's kind of draft, here's a simple policy.
Yeah,
I mean, the things consistent among us is every community's under the MGA, which gives us all the authority to do this. Yeah, I think we can find some common ground there.
yeah, and we
Yeah.
don't want bad debt at the end of the day, at the end of the year.
Well, we
and,
have, yeah.
And maybe we allow each community to collect as they see fit.
I think the other thing we have in common is that none of the participating communities want to be unnecessarily burdened by debts of a different community, one of the other communities.
Yeah, and so it will have to be
You know, as long as they
left
share that, if we have a fire and half Cardston burns
Yeah.
down, we don't want them to think that's their problem.
Yeah, we're gonna requisition them.
Right.
Portion.
Yeah, we
So
do.
let's just threaten them with that and then see if they
Half
get
the
in
town,
line.
huh?
Okay.
Okay, well, we have a motion to ask administration to draft a policy dealing with the collecting of
Guidelines.
firefighting debts
Yeah.
and to present that to council.
Okay.
So all in favor of that motion? Thank you. Okay, looks like we're in favor of that. So that was a good discussion. Let's see what kind of a discussion we can have on council remuneration. And I appreciate the mayor has given us a little paper on some thoughts. I've also asked for Bill to put some things up on the screen here. Basically, this is what's in your package. When we had the discussion previously, that's always tricky trying to get that to come up. But when we had the discussion previously, the items that were agreed on in January, let's see if we can get those up. I'll just start reading them and then they may appear up on the screen here.
This is it here?
No, it's on your drive.
What are we looking at?
Oh, council remuneration, if you've got that point on your drive. So in January, when we had this discussion, we decided that councillors,
Do you want to change it or do you want Jeff to?
yeah, maybe Jeff, you'll be, it's going to be behind me, so we can do that. We agreed that councils will not be reimbursed for attending events with political purpose. So, okay, I think we agreed that councillors.
Give us an example, what's an event with a political purpose?
Okay, so you're
Yes.
going to a PC golf tournament or.
Gotcha, so
or
it's something
a
separate,
rally or something like
Anything to
that.
do with.
unless you've been assigned by
political
council to attend.
Yeah, you're going to a political
You would not
rally.
be, you would not be.
Shouldn't be.
That's right.
A partisan, any partisan.
So yeah, when you say
partisan-
political, you mean
A
partisan.
partisan,
Partisan,
you
yeah.
know,
Okay.
supporting any
Yeah.
political party or things like that.
Or anything of
Yeah.
that sort.
Okay, councillors will not be reimbursed nor claim per diem for any meeting that already compensates them for mileage. So if you're on a committee and they pay you for your, then we don't double dip here, so.
Well, Chinook Foundation is a good example. They have money in their account so that they can send so many board members to
Yeah, if they,
ASHA and stuff like that.
It's the same with the.
so we don't plan, yeah,
They pay the.
if your committee or, yeah, they pay your expenses, you don't claim them. So we decided that no, we don't have any allowance for technology. We didn't ask for anything for cell phones, so that was agreed on. We agreed that remuneration may change based on the time commitments of each committee, and I think the mayor's addressed that a little bit in her letter. The next one, practice over the past 2 months has been the council by motion request that the council, that
Should be if a council.
yeah, that's what I wonder if it should be an if in there. Councillor attends a meeting for the town. This is covered by the general council costs and not the personal development. So when we ask, Councillor Barfuss to attend a economic development, then, we're not going to take it out of his account. We'll cover it because we've asked him to attend for council.
Just a quick question, did we get a spot for him to go to that? I saw it at Landon Falls.
It's sold out right now, he's on a waiting list.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, and number 6, we agreed that remuneration policy will not be tied to employee association going forward, which it was in the past. So that was what we decided. And
So this is actually the last year of that, right? It's the next year.
Yeah, so moving
Policy
forward,
goes right up to
we will
2017.
determine it in a different way, and that, I guess, may have to be determined how we will determine that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, questions now for today, and I'd like to just cover these one at a time so that we can focus on them, if possible.
Hey, Jill, where's the receiver for it? Is this not-
I guess we can.
I'll just read that while just getting one up. Okay, the first question is, do per diem claims need peer review? In other words, the mayor approves for the councillors and with the deputy mayor approving mayor per diems. Now, when this was presented before, many other municipalities had this clause in their remuneration policy. And we have to think not only of our council now, we may all be great people and trust each other, but this is going to be carrying forward to future council. So do you feel like this would be a good idea to have the mayor approve?
What did Cuff?
Yeah, was that?
I don't think
I don't remember the comment on Cuff's recommendations, but this was in many of the.
Give us an example.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm going to give you a very simple example, why I would prefer not to see it. But there is a town not far from where we are, where that policy was in place. So the mayor was approving the expenses of the councillors and was readjusting them according to what he felt was appropriate. Except that on his own, what was deemed appropriate for the councillor didn't seem to also fit what the mayor claimed. And so there was a discrepancy there, so even the system didn't work.
So you're saying it might lead to some nitpicking?
Nitpicking, and that has caused a lot of hard feelings
Dissension.
between this. Personally, this is why I wrote what I wrote here. I think what we need to do is to have very, very clear guidelines as to how we claim our expenses, accept them collectively, and move on. So there is no, and then that it is an honest system, or that it is reviewed by administration, or the question is council responsible for checking that we are following the procedure, and how do we do it? Essentially, this is why other towns do it the way they do. The mayor reviews everybody's, and the deputy mayor reviews the mayor's. that is a system in place in many towns. Is that what we want? Personally, I don't especially care for it,
Okay.
but that is up to you to decide. As Councillor Creed said, we have our council now, and what we're doing is working, but who knows in the future? And we put policies in place to create best practices.
Okay, Councillor Bengry.
What I appreciate is when my expense account goes in, I know it goes across Jeff's desk. And our CAO has a chance to peruse it and say, yeah, you know, or they'll contact us and say, hey, you know, what about this and that? And I think that's our checkpoint right there.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, Councillor Peavoy, you have one?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's always hard when you're a governing body because you have to check yourself. And so I agree with the mayor that our council should be governed by a strict policy. And that way, there's no room really for bias, et cetera. However, that policy maybe should just be checked, confirmed, if you will, maybe by, in this case, the mayor for everyone else and the deputy mayor for the mayor. So essentially, we're saying, hey, I'm bringing this in based on policy, my request, and then if there's any question that comes up in that mayor's confirmation or the deputy mayor against the mayor, maybe that should just come to the council then to be discussed as a whole. That way, you know, the mayor's not the bad guy, right? And the council then can discuss any questionable issue. Especially, I don't think we want to put the burden of questionable issues on administration
And that's
for the
point.
council.
That is a
And-
point.
Right.
Right,
And
yeah.
we have to be very careful not to do that because, but no, having said that, I really appreciate when administration can at least explain to me the understanding when I don't have everything in front of me, so.
All right,
But we're gonna put the burden of proof on our mayor.
okay, let me just suggest something. This is my thought on the way it should be handled, and, you know, I like, you know, having definite recommendations from the council, but what I feel is that whenever there's an event, and we've done this to some extent in the past, is that we decide, before we go to Brownlee, we decide who, you know, how much per diem we're going to claim, and we decide how we're going to handle the mileage, and, you know, decide it beforehand, and how it's going to be done in council, and then when they comes in, we're consistent.
Yeah.
Would that be possible to put that into the policy? Yeah.
Except that we have already a policy on transportations and we're not following very well.
Well, okay, but that's what I'm saying. If we, you know, like I say, make those decisions, and there, you know, as we get farther down the questions, there will be some questions dealing with transportation, things like that. But I'm getting from this that we don't really want that the mayor approval. Is that what I'm getting from the council? Any?
Well, I think that puts quite a burden on our mayor.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if we can just do it as a council as a whole, rather than, you know, getting, you know, personalities involved. You know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, you're right, your different personalities might have this, want to nitpick, or it might cause, you know, some contentions.
Well, it cost so much stuff that it went to court, right?
Yeah,
So it's no fun.
So,
No.
yeah, go ahead.
My only problem with that is, you know, most, you know, 98% of everything that goes through is just, it makes sense, it's common sense, doesn't need to really come. So I would say, rather than make the mayor the you know, the governing authority on that issue, perhaps just the reporting authority. And so if something comes up, the mayor says, you know what, I would just like to have that one discussed in council. And I mean, if it comes up that there was nothing wrong with it, you know, I mean, what happens is precedent eventually irons some of that out. You know, once you've had that discussion once, then the next time it comes up again, people know, you know, where that went last time.
Yeah, how about if you know, like Councillor Bengry said, they go across Jeff's desk. If a red flag comes up, would you bring that to the mayor or deputy mayor and say?
I have before.
And you have, so if something to that effect is in the policy, you know, I don't think we have to have me reviewing, or the mayor reviewing every councillor's per diems.
Councillor Creed, you said it to start with, that we discuss who's going where and how we're gonna go, and basically what we're gonna claim. And I think we need to be discussing that right here at council chambers, so that our public can tell that we're controlling ourselves.
Yeah, transparency, that we just
Exactly.
keep it open, yeah.
But if we just open it up and say, hey, you know, there's gonna be 10 of us go to the recycling conference in Lethbridge, and this is what it's gonna cost the town.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
I saw some
Good.
councils well represented at that.
Yeah. Hello, this is Mr. Taxpayer asking you, what are you doing with my money?
Okay, so my feeling is that, you know, council as a whole can review this, and it doesn't have to be by the mayor or deputy mayor, so we drop
No,
that one.
and like Jeff said, the red flags do come up every once in a while, and he'll discuss
Yeah,
that.
okay, so could you put number?
Well, one of
2?
those red flags is question number 3 there. Does travel time constitute
Yeah.
per diem?
Well, we'll get
Right?
to that in a second. Let's put your, get number 2 up on there. Should there be a minimum mileage incurred to be able to claim? So, in other words, not running around the town. I don't know if anybody,
No.
And
I
it's
should
25K
clarify, these aren't
on
up here because they're
75
things I've seen over the year and I've been making notes. We haven't had this ever.
this has never come up.
No.
Okay.
It's never come up,
So-
but it's in other policies to say, you know, you can't claim until you've been to a meeting over X amount of kilometers or something,
No.
right?
Okay, all right,
Yeah, no, we've never seen it.
okay.
Here is one of interest. For those who go to the, what do you call it, the garbage.
Oh, yeah, the.
Transfer
Sorry.
station. Yeah,
Transfer
Solid waste.
The solid
It's like
waste,
15 minutes,
sorry.
15 minutes out of town, I don't
Okay,
know.
15 minutes out of town. That is nothing, the 15 minutes. I never, ever charged it. But is it fair to say that if it represents so much mileage over a year, that we should look at it? I do not know. I
Yeah.
never charged it.
Well, no, I didn't.
And I know
either.
that you didn't, and I know that nobody else has.
But,
So is that something, this is why that is there.
Well-
Is that around the town or up to the county office, forget it, but I'm taking 10 minutes at a time,
Yeah.
so what do we do there?
Yeah, and I like to think of, when we discuss remuneration, I like to think of, you know, the burden I'm leaving on the next counselor who comes in, you know? And do I
Yeah.
want to say, I'm willing to drive, no problem, but do I want to say that I think every elected official should have to make that decision? You know, they should have to get themselves all the way there without any remuneration because of my choice not to collect any. So again, that's the question that comes up for me, you know?
Yeah.
What would I expect
Well,
of
that's the
the next
point.
person I elect?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, well, that's what I said at the beginning, you know, we're not doing this just for our council.
Right.
You know, we've got to think going ahead, is this a policy that would be good to have in there so that we can say, you know, maybe Chief Mountain Solid Waste, maybe we set that as the minimum, which is like, how many, I don't know how many kilometers that is.
Well,
So the meetings out there at the transfer station?
Yeah, out of the, well, at the.
What is it,
landfill.
about
Yeah.
15 kilometers?
Sounds about right, somewhere in there.
It's about 15
Would that
kilometers
be
or
a
so.
minimum, or do we want to set McGrath?
No, I mean, I would think 15 kilometers fair.
15 kilometers is.
that gets you to
is
stand off as
reasonable.
well, right? If they're-
Okay, standoff or?
No,
well,
stand-up,
Stand out 30 plus.
Yeah,
It
If
gets
you're
you,
returning, you got 60.
you got Glenwood turnoff is 15 miles.
so if we was to
15
say,
kilometers, 17K.
But I agree with the concept of having it in the policy. I also agree that obviously anything within the town, you know, or
This
the
is-
county office.
But maybe we
This
should
town.
put that, if the transfer station, I mean, if the landfill authority is the minimum that we don't pay for, then it's a minimum.
This
And
up
that
here,
would be a
So
good
airport's
idea
out of
as to,
well, airport's, what, how far
That'd be
is the
closer.
airport? It's about the same, isn't it?
Be closer, I
6K,
think,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
6 or
not very far.
7K.
So the
Right.
cutoff, what we're saying is the cutoff is waste authority, yes, airport, no.
So we don't get paid to go and make breakfast?
Like the airport's about the same, I think.
the airport is about the same
That's just about the
distance.
same. All right.
this to me here is an administration
Okay.
situation where Jeff might have a staff going and getting mail, using their own vehicle, or picking up parcels, or going up to the public works using their own vehicle. This, to me, that's That's
Yeah,
an
but you
organization.
know something, it's also, if you're asked to go to a photo op, if you're asked to go to
Ribbon cutting?
November 11th, ribbon cutting, you name it, go to the, whatever.
historically,
But it
that-
seems to me that in town we shouldn't have to worry
Historically, I'll
about
bet
it.
you, in all the years that I sat on council, which is not very many, we've never claimed for our in-town expenses.
Exactly, I never
So
had to.
why are we?
Well, that's kind of what Jeff said,
considering
it hasn't been a problem, so we
So
we
that
can either
is just a
say,
question that is there for us to consider.
yeah,
Figure out what's the minimum.
we can say maybe it never will be a problem, or we can at least put it in the policy and say, you know, so that if there is a issue in the future, we can say, well, this is the policy that we
Yeah.
have, so.
Just to clarify it,
Yeah.
So what
so
would,
you don't question anymore.
what would we say, 15 kilometers one way would be the,
Would be the
Would be the
bottom line,
minimum.
that'd be the, yeah.
15
The
kilometers
minimum.
one way, or
If
or
anything
30.
over that, then you would charge, but anything 15 and under, you don't charge.
You don't charge, so
Right.
over 15
Then you do.
one way would be the minimum.
Well, you charge both ways, you gotta come back
At
too.
44.5 cents a mile, it costs you more to write the check.
Well, yeah, and are we okay, you know, we're using basically the provincial standard for mileage, so,
Which it
That's
is.
another question we need to bring up too, because
That's
not
always-
everybody's following the same standard. McGrath and Raymond are still charging 55 cents.
County.
But
in
you
the
know,
county.
you know something,
Okay.
it is a wise policy to follow
It's Canada revenue.
government, Canada revenue standards. If other towns don't do it, doesn't make them right.
Yeah.
It just means that they can't be bordered. And our town tried to be consistent with Canada revenue, I appreciate that,
okay.
even if we don't like it.
Oh, I'm not saying I don't like it, I'm just saying there's an inconsistency there,
But
that's all
that's
I'm
our
saying.
problem.
Yeah.
That's
And-
worry about us.
And I think that we need to be following the guidelines.
Yeah, there are guidelines, are
Yeah.
given to us for the
Yeah.
purpose.
Okay. So are we okay with just setting 15 kilometers one way as the minimum?
Yeah, we said yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Jeff, you got that?
Yep.
Number 3 up there. Does travel time constitute a per diem? So for Brownlee, do we charge, you know, the 3-hour drive to Calgary?
It's a half a day.
As a half a day, so I
It's
understand that
$112, not 109.
most of us claim that
109?
day and a half.
Is that 112 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry, then I'm wrong.
Yeah, so I don't know what the precedent is. It sounds like there's been a little bit of, you know, some people doing one thing, some people doing another. So again, I'm not saying one way or the other, but I do agree it should
I
be
didn't
consistent
think that
with
they
our
were
council.
consistent.
And probably, just in general, I just want to say here that almost some of these decisions might be better made in, you know, some of these ideas might be better made by comparison with other communities. And again, that's not to say that, just because if every other community is paying their elected officials to make that drive, you know, and we happen to be the only one that isn't, and that's fine too, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that maybe, again, we're putting a little undue responsibility on those next, you know, officers who are coming up. So, I mean, right now, it sounds like we've been leaving it to the discretion of each individual councillor.
No, I don't think so.
But,
No. Right now,
well,
that-
if some
that-
people
My discretion was
charge
changed.
for what they
Yeah.
Oh, was it? What happened?
And I had no problem with it, I
Right,
don't
right,
really
right.
know.
Right
Yeah.
now,
Okay.
right now, the way I view it, when we went to Brownlee, first of all, if we were true to the policy on travel that we have in place, we would see that it is an obligation of council to minimize the amount of vehicle we take in out of town, to begin with. When we go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, we're not minimizing. So that is something we need to take in
Yes. I think
consideration.
there's another question a little farther down that's going to address the carpooling issue.
Yeah.
So,
So we need to be true to the policies that are already there. The reason they are there is because traveling is extremely costly. So as for the per diem, I think up to now, it has been that if you go 2.5 hours, that represents a half day. it doesn't represent a whole day. If you leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's your problem. But if it's only 2.5 hours drive, you can't really claim 8 hours.
So, I'm sorry, just
So
to
you're-
clarify what you're saying is you
If
should
you-
be paid for your drive? Is that what you're
Paid
saying?
for the
You
time.
you paid
Half a
per
day.
diem a half a day.
For the time.
That's already what you are paid.
So you're
That
saying
is-
we
Well,
should
when
make
you say
it
that's already what you're paid, you're saying that's
I never
over and
thought that.
above the
That-
meeting.
Yeah, we,
That is
everybody
the
was a
way.
day and a half on Brownlee as an example.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So everybody was a day and a half, it's a day for the whole meeting,
Mhm.
and then the half a day to drive up.
Mhm.
No.
is what it
and
was.
that's the way it is.
So if we was,
Did we requisition for that, or was that just paid by?
no, you had to
Yeah,
represent.
no,
for that.
because
I didn't know who drove and who didn't.
Right,
Right. So-
but I could say for, I mean, I know for me, I didn't charge a day and a half.
But that's,
So you
Councillor,
you can.
you can
Right, you
charge
should.
that, you just need
Well,
to.
I didn't know the policy, so I mean,
But there is
this
a
is
policy
news to me that we can get
No,
paid
no,
for
no,
it.
no, no. The
All right.
policy is there for all.
If,
If,
if you submitted for Brownlee, did you?
Yeah.
Then you got a day and a half.
Okay, so, because I think I
Regardless if
only.
you asked
Yeah, we tweaked it so it was consistent.
Right, right, oh,
I,
yeah.
got the
I
same.
don't know if you're right, Jeff, because when I didn't submit mine, Cammy did, and I said, just charge the mileage. I never
You got a day and a
charged,
half.
did I get a day
you
and a half?
Yeah.
assign your
Because
check, Councillor.
I've never claimed that time, travel time.
Yeah, well, this is why it's on the deal.
Yeah, well, it should be a policy, I mean, absolutely, it should be.
Because we did make everybody day and a half on Brownlee.
No, I
Because really,
think-
you're out of town, you're away from your
That is
families, you're spending the time.
Taking
There's
the
no
day off.
debate there at all.
Yeah.
No, and that to me is fair.
So if we was to go, what I suggested before, if we make the decision as a council before the event, does that just take care of it? You know, say, we're going to be able to
10 Brownlee.
claim Brownlee,
Yeah.
you can claim a day and a half when we decide, or if we all feel generous and say, well, we're only gonna charge a day for Brownlee, then that.
So what are you gonna charge for AUMA in Edmonton?
Well,
That's a full day.
we charge the whole day, because.
Yeah, because it's
It's
6
6
hours.
hours drive, so that's a whole day. It goes beyond the 4 hours, that's normally the way it is, right?
See, some of you will remember Brownlees of the past, where we got in the car at 5 in the morning.
Yes, I remember
Drove
that
up
very
and went to
well.
the thing, and came
And we
back.
had one van and we all
Yeah,
parked inside it
piled
and
in
we
a van
went.
and went up, I'm not suggesting that's what we have to do, but, you know, that we've done it differently.
I totally disagree with that. You know
But-
that? I totally disagree with that, and it's my own opinion,
Mhm.
that you either charge mileage or you charge a per diem. That's the way I feel. And that's the way I've done it in the past, and I've expected to be done that way. And I apologize to this council if I was paid for a day and a half per diem or whatever it is, for my
Individual
travel
kilometers.
But you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
have to
I'm with you.
apologize,
So
Councillor.
you were within the policy, it was
Within the
okay.
policy, so-
You don't have to apologize. There's a policy right now on remuneration. We just follow that. If we
Well,
need to change it, this
I've
is why
always-
we're discussing
But
it.
I've always felt that you either claim one or the other. That's the way I felt.
But
And
that,
that's what I try to claim,
Yeah.
is if I'm driving my own vehicle, that's my choice.
By the way, if I may, just to help him out, I think what he's saying, because I'm feeling the same, is if I charge kilometers,
Yeah.
but I'm not charging per diem, I don't want to be yelled at for dragging my car. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't charge a per diem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
well, I'll be frank too, I just don't like the carpool because of the fact that I get car sick. I mean, I'm just,
Well, my wife's
and
the
I have a
same,
problem with that.
my wife's the same boat as you are.
Yeah, well,
So I
there's
just-
there's another
Address that
question
here.
later on that's going to address the
Yeah.
carpooling issue, so.
I'm sorry, that's
So-
all there is to it. Me.
I'm trying to think what I'm.
No more apologies, by the way. The rest of it's discussed.
Nobody's in violation.
We're all feeling
I don't want to
guilty.
be feeling guilty about taking my.
But
Yeah.
we need to look at that policy.
So Councillor Bengry is saying he doesn't think we should charge per diem for travel time.
Well, we either charge one or the other.
Oh, well.
So you feel
so-
that
so-
travel, the mileage rate covers your time?
So what do I charge? Because I carpooled with Bengry.
Right.
So you
I
get
won't
half
charge mileage, but I could charge per diem, is that what you're
Yeah, you
saying?
get a half day.
But then, that's gonna be a lot more than his mileage, I think.
3 at 270, yeah, it'd be real close.
So and then he's buying
He's
the
got wear and
gas.
tear and gas,
He's
yeah.
buying the gas and he's bringing wear and tear on
But
his
I-
car. I don't think that's fair to him.
Past council that I sat on, if we traveled with somebody, we didn't claim a per diem. We were there, we were going to work. It's just like somebody that's chose to live in Lethbridge and work in Cardston.
Well, okay, let's put it as you're going to work. When I was working for a painter, they would pay travel time one way. So that might be a way to do it. You pay your per diem one way, but you don't claim it coming back. Would that be a way to do it?
Well, there's a lot of things, maybe when we look at this, maybe they will can address a lot of those things.
Well,
So, anyway, Dave, what's your feeling on travel?
I don't have any problem with charging the per diem plus your mileage.
Per diem for your
time is worth something.
time.
Well, and that's what most municipalities are doing. That's
That's pretty much standard policy?
I would think that's pretty common.
To me, it's standard according to government
Yeah.
policies. The government of Alberta does pretty well the same. I remember one time trying to charge a different rate, and my claim was sent back to me and said, you're not playing the game the right way.
not charging
You
enough.
have to, you're not charging enough. You have to do it this way and this way. And I thought, how is it possible? But those are guidelines to facilitate the way people are paid, that's all.
Okay.
Well, at
And
least
not
we're not
play
using
with-
the corporate jet, so.
Yeah, so
So we're buying a jet now?
Anyway.
with some dissensions, I think
We've got an
the
airport.
policy is that we should be paid for our
Fly out of
time.
this airport.
Is that,
I feel the same way as
We should be
Councillor.
paid for our time,
Mayor. I think we
basically.
should.
And if you don't like it, you can always donate it back to the town.
Yeah,
You always have that possible chance. I've been done a couple times.
we done that.
Okay, 4, councillors volunteer for executive assignments resulting in more meetings. Are these part of the core assignments for committee reimbursement, or should per diems be charged? Okay.
And that is a good point. For example, that is my case with South Grove. So up to now, I always have said, if we don't have another meeting that month, I would consider that extra meeting that's probably twice as long, my monthly meeting. But it could happen that it is 2 meetings in 1 month, with one twice as long as the other, for planning or whatever session that is, or AGM, whatever. So here is really the question, should the second meeting, which is beyond and above your regular committee meeting, a per diem item or not?
And I've got a thought on that. And again, speaking of my own situation, the Waste Authority is my regular meeting. However, I'm on a policy committee that, like the mayor said, literally that committee takes longer than the actual meeting in my mind. And so my feeling, and not just speaking about myself, but just in general, governance, I think that if the authority or the group doesn't have a remuneration policy for that, I think that the municipality should, because it is important that we stay involved. We saw the same thing on the Chinook with, ASHA, et cetera. Now, in the Chinook, they have the funding to pay for that. But if they didn't, we still would want a representative to participate in that and be compensated for their service. So,
Yeah, Dave?
Well, like this month, I have a Chinook Arch conference to attend Friday and Saturday. And later in the month, I have a planning meeting with Community Futures, which is 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the first day is usually about 9 to 12 hours.
Yeah, you've got to be compensated
Yeah.
per diem for those meetings.
Yeah. So those are-
if those
Yeah.
organizations aren't compensating you.
Okay.
Well, they
So-
do, they pay your mileage
Right.
and the conference costs.
Yeah.
But they don't give you a per
That's your per
diem.
diem.
So you should be getting the per diem. for
So
that.
essentially, I would tend to believe that proper compensation should be had.
Mhm. Now, you can raise some issues on what you've written.
Yeah,
that-
but it's a total different approach to remuneration.
Okay.
Maybe we could,
Because I'm thinking, because you're suggesting that, that there's times in the summer where we don't have meetings.
And that's the whole point too, yeah.
So I'm wondering if there should be some give and take and say, well, you know, if you have maybe an extra meeting that's an hour, that's, you can compensate that by, maybe you won't have a meeting in the summer or something, and you're still gonna get paid for your regular committee report. But, you know, like say on you know, a day or 2 days, that's pretty significant, you know, so that might be, you know, the time, yeah.
Yeah, for me, this opens up the issue then again of the possibility or the need for some oversight. One example is, I mean, again, I don't doubt that everyone around this table is a completely honest person and does everything in good faith. However, there's definitely room when we get into this for some abuse, you know. There could be, at some future date, or perhaps has happened in the past, a counselor who's out there volunteering for everything, this, that, and the other, and really, do we even know if they're attending the meetings they're claiming, et cetera, and then there's abuse. And that's why it's nice to have that executive pair of eyeballs looking at the requisitions that are coming through, maybe on a quarterly basis, and saying, whoa, this is skewed, just getting a little out of hand for this, and then just to flag it, and as Bengry pointed out, as Councillor Bengry pointed out, maybe that's administration who points that out and just brings it to council and just says, hey, we've got one councillor who's either really more busy than the rest of you, and perhaps we can lighten their load, or, you know, we got another problem.
Councillor Maggie first, and then come to you.
Okay, I have 18 meetings a year in McGrath. 6 Chinook and 12 Mormon Trail. I'm in Lethbridge on a daily basis. How do you want me to claim my mileage? From disregard coming from Lethbridge to McGrath and claim it only from McGrath to Cardston? Or do I take it as I am living in Cardston, going to McGrath and back? Now, I've discussed this with...
That's an excellent point.
Well, I've discussed this with our CAO, and what I have done is I will claim one trip every other time.
Like a two-way trip every other time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a full
Yeah.
trip every second time. Yeah, I would say that makes sense.
Yeah, that's either that
Unless I'm home.
or charge.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
because
That's fair.
when we get to you know, another one on you know, if you've got other business, you know, my suggestion is just claim one way, which would be exactly what you're doing. You're claiming one way, because if you charge the whole trip every other time, it's like claiming one way on it. So maybe
Well,
you.
no, carry on.
Okay,
because
so
I lost
my thought on that is this, and I appreciate Councillor Bengry for even being willing to be flexible on that, because he's there. However, I think it's responsible for us as a municipality, and I learned this lesson years ago in an ecclesiastical setting, where I was donating to a group I already donate to anyway, and it was no big deal. Until they came back to me that one time and they said, look, you're never submitting any of your receipts, and we have no clue what your budget is. So, you know, you've been doing this for years, and now, you know, you're moving on, new guys coming in, and we don't expect that new guy to pay for this. We don't have a proper budget for your programs. It's the same with Councillor Bengry. We as a municipality need to know what the budget is for the responsibilities that we have, because the next person who takes over Councillor Bengry's committees is not going to be making that trip to Lethbridge already anyway. So it's important that we have the budget, and then, as has been mentioned, if Councillor Bengry wants to donate some of that money back because, hey, I was driving anyway, but I would say let's get it on the budget, and then if you donate it back to the town, that's your business. But let's have it on the budget so we know. Because honestly, I feel like a lot of our executive, you know, costs are being donated, and we don't have a fair estimate of what it takes to run a council in this town.
I agree with you 100%.
And I think that I'm just speaking from my own experience.
Okay.
There's a lot, you know, the next guy who fills this chair is not going to have my same, you know, low cost. And I wouldn't want him to.
So, yeah, so I just, yeah, go ahead. I'll-
Well, to address that, Councillor, there is a certain amount that is set aside in a budget for council work and committee work, regardless if you submit or not. So it's a projected budget and the actual. The projected budget is what should give you an idea of what we're doing. The actual is a reflection of what we are truly doing. So that pictures that you say should be there is there
Well, but the
already.
projected right now is based on actuals from years past. We say, well, what have we paid?
More or
in the
less.
last 5 years?
More or
Is
less.
that what we do?
This last
Say so
year,
a
we
bit.
tried to extrapolate it kind of
Yeah.
as best as we could, considering history and then kind of trying to extrapolate. If everybody did this many meetings a year at this kind of per diem, and we took a better stab at it.
Do we come in budget or under budget or over budget?
We
budget.
were.
Under budget?
Well.
Well, 2 years ago it was
we were
over.
budget.
2 years was over because we were
Majority
just
over.
using historical.
Mhm.
And then, not 2016, but 2015, we tried to extrapolate what the full cost would be. So I'm
Yeah,
pretty
and-
sure we'd be under. in
Can I just speak to that
2015.
real quick? I believe,
Councillor.
well, I just want to say this. If my numbers are on budget, then the budget's wrong. I can just tell you
Yeah,
that with
yeah.
honest
Well,
assurance.
it's-
If my numbers, I mean, I'm not speaking for anyone else here, but if my numbers are on budget,
Yeah.
the budget is way, way low.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
Councillor-
I personally am subsidizing a lot of what I do.
Councillor, if you know that, and you're the one who was telling us that we should have a fair reflection, why aren't you claiming your
no,
expenses?
yeah.
Because then you're causing us the
I
problem.
am.
And so,
I'm admitting
instead
it.
of causing us a problem,
Right.
fix the problem, you can.
Right.
Submit your expenses,
Exactly.
please.
And then you can donate them back if you choose to.
Yeah.
You
Councillor,
can
yeah.
always have many,
My
many
guess is you
things
won't.
that would like to have that money.
Okay.
It's easier
All
to
right,
donate
now-
upfront.
Let's talk about
You'll have a kid that
sitting on boards and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to address that.
The reason why I want to address the issue, in the past, we've had past administrators who have been asked to sit on AUMA. That past administration said, I will sit on there and it would be no cost to the town. However, my thinking is that if the mayor is asked to sit on Southwest or South Grill, that's advantageous to this community that she sits there, because she's going to look after the affairs that deal with this community a lot more than what she's going to look after the affairs that deal with Tabor. And so it's advantageous to have us sitting on some of these committee meetings, and they need to be paid for that time.
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
That
go ahead.
that leads me to another question, maybe for us. Before we take executive position, we should discuss that at this table, so that one person doesn't have 3 executive jobs.
Well, and then we discuss the advantages of
Right.
having that individual sitting.
I really think, and if you know you have an AGM coming, and if you know you have an interest, you know a position is coming, and you would like the town to be represented, bring that to council. Let's get the council approval so that you don't have to worry about your per diem.
Right.
They will be looked after.
I like that. Dennis, did you have any other thoughts on that?
I was just gonna say that, when you go to the AUMA, they're always looking for people to help out. My very first AUMA, I went to one of the evening socials, the luncheons there, and I ended up in a group with AUMA people and introduced myself, blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as they found out
Jump on you.
I was from Cardston, they were all over me to get on one of their boards, on one of their committees, and I said, hold on, I said, I just got elected, I said, I don't even understand the process yet, I'm still learning. But they said, well, give yourself some time, but we really need people from the various councils to be working with our committees. So far, I haven't said anything to them, but every time I see them, they always kind of approach me. And so, I'm glad we're having this discussion, because I wanted to know where we all sat with this, and I
So-
think that we all should, consider
Yeah, I've
this
often heard,
opportunity sometime.
yeah, I've often heard people on the AUMA, thank their councils for their, for supporting them. So I don't know how they do it, but I like the mayor's suggestion that we come to council before we accept that assignment and say, is this a benefit, and get the
Yeah.
blessing of
Yeah.
council.
And
Can
don't
we-
say yes, just say I'll consider it and get back to you.
But do it before the AGM.
Can
That's
we-
always when position come open and vote is taken.
Yeah.
So do it before that time, bring it at the table so that you have a blessing to be on those things.
Okay, can we put policy in that, frame it in
Get some
that
notes on that, yeah.
way that we can?
I got one more question.
Yeah.
How much time is a committee meeting?
How much,
Well,
oh,
this,
That's a good question, Councillor.
Yeah, like,
That's a later question on here. maybe.
yeah, can we maybe look at this afterwards in a little bit?
Yeah.
Because that might address a little bit of that issue for you, because I really think of your situation and of some others that have similar issues, and we need to start to look at it a different way.
yeah, okay, so I think, does that take care of
Yeah.
4? No?
Well, hold
How many of
hold
these
on
do you
just a
wanna bite
second
off
here.
tonight,
I don't think we
Because we can
We
jump
don't
back
have, we don't
in.
have to go through all
Yeah,
those
we can jump back in
questions,
next month.
and I may- I
I'm
was
just
trying
saying,
to
this
decide
is the question
so-
about the committee. If you are on a AUMA committee or you're on another provincial body,
You need
know,
to figure out how
we
to
have to find
fund it.
out whether, yeah, I was gonna say, we have to know whether they're paying you to
Right,
do that. If they're paying you,
Well, we've already,
then we don't worry about that.
we've already.
But if they're not,
Yes.
then.
but they will not be paying your per diem.
Pardon me?
They will not pay your
No,
per
they'll be
diem.
paying your mileage.
They might pay your mileage and
Yeah,
your meals.
and then you would have to have.
And maybe even your hotel,
Yeah.
possibly.
And then we would have to claim a per diem for those.
Yeah, some,
Yeah,
so if we just get the blessing of council beforehand on
absolutely.
that, then I think that we can add that to the policy, so. Yeah, Jeff suggested we didn't have to get through all the questions tonight, we can keep,
Yeah.
bring this up at the next, and I've been trying to watch the clock to so budget our time here. I'm wondering if we can.
Let's get
a
down to
couple
that
more.
one that Councillor Edmonds brought up,
Can
because
we
that is
maybe
a
then
big
review
one.
this to try to
Yeah,
understand
Is that a
it?
30-minute conversation
Finish.
Or unless
We
you
don't
want
have
to
to
do
do that
it some
this
other day in order
Yeah,
to
well,
come
no, we don't
to this
have to,
point.
but
Next
I'm
Tuesday
wondering
brings
if we
sandwiches.
could,
Yeah.
we could
Hunker
always
down.
finish the rest of the agenda and then come back to this if,
Good.
see how our time is, just, I don't want to cut off any
These are really
discussion.
I
important
think this is a very
conversations.
important
Yeah.
thing, and it has been on our minds, all of us,
so.
now for a year and a half, so.
It's the elephant.
I mean, it's not that we have, we are allocated, 3 hours for the meeting, and it's, we don't, it's not, we have to get through it. I don't think Jeff's got any supper coming for us, but if we could,
You want to carry on?
All right, what was Jeff's like?
if we could, yeah, why don't we move through the rest of the agenda, and then we can come back and we can continue on with this discussion.
Sure.
So we're on powwow number 7A?
Yeah, after we finish, so let's do that, let's just, what would you call that, table it, or just set it aside for
Yeah, just
for a
leave
bit,
it in for now.
and we'll bring it back and see how our time goes. I'm not opposed to, going to the full time for our meeting. I don't want to go over, but I think we can do that. So on the powwow, the mayor has put together some terms of reference. And I'll
speak to it?
Yes, of course.
Okay, all right. The reason we need a term reference is obviously so that the committee can function according to some kind of guiding principle and rules. We already had some, but there is here something that I want to kind of maybe change or see altered a little bit. First of all, there is under 1A, Jeff, if you could maybe put under the word build, put building. I think it should be building, maybe. I did
Yeah,
not.
I have your notes on that.
Oh, did you
Yeah.
get that one? I
Yeah.
didn't see it when I wrote that thing first time around. Okay, and then under the committee composition, this is where maybe for a little bit of clarity on the C, what we're trying to do is to have 8 members altogether. There has to be an equal representation at the table. But what I thought on the C, I would prefer something to say, first of all, under 2B, add the word "and" at the end of the sentence, and C would read, extra officials or members at large, in other words, I could be elected or not. 50% from blood tribe, bracket maximum 3. 50% from the town, bracket maximum 3, not to exceed 6. In other words, you have,
8, you say?
this is why it's not clear the way it's written. So it needs to say maximum altogether 6 of extra elected and members
Oh, you-
at
instead of
large.
8, you want 6 there?
Yeah.
All right.
So this is why it will read extra officials or members at large, 50% from block tribe, max 3, 50% from the town, max 3, not to exceed 6. So in other
Also-
words, you have A's that is 1, B's that is 1, plus 6 makes 8.
8, okay, there.
So your
Now I
quorum is
understand.
50% plus 1.
This is
Out
what
of
we
8
have.
members.
So 5.
Yeah,
Has to
and
be 5.
what
It's
I
50.
have on the...
50% plus 1 of the total potential?
Yeah, or is it present? At a
Well,
minimum.
this is where the electronic, if you
Yeah,
see,
that's
we have
actually-
added electronic voting. In other words, you could have a quorum very much the way we did it last year, where were at a table and we had our cell phone and we were having the cell phone open, conversation going on, and the voting going on this way, so that the members that were not at the table were still part of that quorum, as they could interact with us. But they were not physically at the same table. And that's what we did quite a few times, because it was the only way we could do it.
The only problem I have with that, Mayor, people have a real short memory.
Well, you know what? It served us well last year, and to see
Take minutes.
the desire of the blood tribe to have 4 elected officials at the table, it's great, but I also know that at times they are called here and there, and can be there with us electronically, but not always physically. And we need a quorum in order to be able to make decisions.
So on a quorum, my understanding is like on the library board, you got 7 members and they're voting members. You have to have at least 4 there to call a quorum,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
But a quorum for us can be obtained not by the people there. For example, we have 3 or 4 people here. A quorum of 8, 50 plus
That's
1
5.
would be 5.
So you're
we have
dealing
3.
only with
We could
powwow
have it by having 1 or 2 members.
Like a
also.
teleconference.
Yeah.
So you're
And then you
dealing
can get
only with
the-
the powwow committee when you draft this policy of
It's only for
electronic.
the...
Yeah, we're just
Yeah,
talking about the
it's-
powwow committee.
We're talking at this time the power, because it worked for us last year very well, and because it worked very well, and we were not, according to our terms of reference specifically, we felt it's time, although every time we had a minute, we put the vote and we indicated those who voted electronically. And so,
Are you worried about
Through
setting
this.
a precedence?
I'm sorry,
Are you worried about setting a precedence on committee attendance?
I'm not worried
Well,
about
this is
that.
just for
But
this.
if it,
No, but if we do this for the powwow, can somebody say, hey, I'm not going to the meeting, get a hold of me on my cell phone, I'm gonna sit home in the living room and I'll do it electronically.
You know, Councillor, you don't have a bad point there. But at this point, I would rather have this in terms of reference for a committee that is not specifically a town committee. It's a blood tribe town committee.
It's an events committee.
It's
Yeah,
it's
an
an
event
ad
committee.
hoc committee.
Yeah.
Okay, it's strictly an event committee for a committee that sits for less than 6 months and move on.
Then I think that needs to be stated. You know, in that policy, that needs to be stated that this policy is for this event only. That way, we're not setting a precedence so that Richard Bengry can phone up, like I said, I'm sitting in my big chair, I'm enjoying the news, I'm having a glass of Diet Coke, just phone me, and I'll talk to you on the
No,
phone.
I totally understand what you're saying, But the way we had it set up last year is because those people
Yeah.
literally were not capable of being there. It's
Yeah.
not that they didn't want to.
So, yeah, if I can add just a little historical background, like when I first got on council, Mayor Scow was, with the powwow committee, and we're dealing with, it's an intercultural committee, and sometimes the way we do things isn't the way they do things.
Vice versa.
And Mayor Scow ran it to sort of suit them, which was kind of a laissez-faire sort of way, and they made it work. We want to be a little more formal, and we want to have the terms of reference, but in order to, work with often the way that their culture works, we have to make some concessions, and I think this is what is reflected in the mayor's, terms of reference for the committee, is that being able to find a way to make this work with both cultures and still meet our expectations as well.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the digital representation. I am worried a bit about quorum. I know if you can't, let's say only 4 people showed up and you can't get anybody on the phone,
Then you don't
business
have
has to
quorum.
proceed.
Then you don't have quorum, yeah.
Well, that's
You
what I'm
don't have
saying, is
quorum.
are we going to tie the hands then, because we can't get a hold of anybody and nobody showed, therefore we can make no progress, make no decisions,
Okay.
even though there's 4 people ready to go.
How does,
And we have important decisions to make by this Saturday type thing. So I almost
Okay,
wish there was a way that you could be free to conduct business in the event that you don't have 5 people. I'm
Okay.
worried about your 5 people.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. In general, we're able, to send them text messages, we're able to get reply that way. It has happened last year that we did not have quorum. In that case, we declared it no quorum. And what we did, if there was somebody who had questions or whatever, I took notes, and then if there was an absolute necessity to have a vote before so many days pass by, we would send that electronically to everybody to express a vote on a specific, but we also had that vote ratified at the following meeting.
So you
that's
did work
what-
around that.
We can make it work, yeah.
Yeah, we had it ratified.
I don't know if you
We've
need
had
to
to do
make
that
that
with
in
fire
terms
hall,
of
too.
reference, like that emergency
a
notes can
vote
be
would
taken
be-
through email or something.
Yeah, maybe we could,
I mean, other committees have done that before.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done it with EMS before.
Yeah,
There is a
we've
section
done
of
it,
voting.
yeah.
We've done
yeah,
that.
there is a
EMS.
section on
Yeah,
voting.
right,
okay.
so this applies to our AGM, or not AGM, but our MGA, and how does that dictate to
Does
us?
it fit?
Does it fit the MGA Act?
I don't think committee structure.
Now, you as a
are-
council have
You
discretion.
have the
over
right
that,
to
yeah.
organize it the way you want,
Yeah,
so
you'll be
long
okay.
it is within the terms of reference that you agree to as a committee.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm passing them by you because I really would rather see them approved at this committee before I bring them forward to the committee, the whole committee, which I think it's better. It's more transparent for me. So, under 4, that says all delegates representing an organization must be officially appointed. Just to keep with the language of the terms of reference, I thought maybe we should say all members of the Power Committee must be officially appointed by that committee for that purpose at organizational meeting. In other words, there's two approval. 1, every members of the blood tribe has to be approved by their chief and council. All the members of our committee need to be approved by our council, and the whole of the 8 members need to be approved by the committee of the Power Committee. That's what it's referring to. It's not referring to only they deal with it, no. It has to be separate and then together. Okay, that's what it refers to. Otherwise, I have no other really other question, except that I was trying to understand a little bit. Right now, the way it is, we have a chair, which is David Innes. We have a co-chair, which is Dexter Broussard. And the secretary was me. So essentially, it's a weird position where I was a voting member with a secretarial job. Doesn't fit too well. So as you could see, they have provided a secretary for us, which is Georgette. And with having her, I think she will be the one who will be the member of the executive as secretary, but without a voting.
Georgette who?
You know.
Georgette Fox?
No.
Okay.
I need to remember her name, but I can't at this point. I will give it to
Now,
you.
for your committee, the administrations are theirs and yours, so the actual administration.
Right, so the way it goes, Georgette, we have decided that the formal meeting we had with Dexter would be that she would be the minute taker. I would still provide the agenda and the budget, and Shem is going to be our treasurer. Correct, Jeff?
I
Shem
believe
is
so,
the
yeah.
treasurer.
Yeah.
So this way, we have both town and blood tribe who have that administrative support.
In your committee organization, where is the chain?
What exactly are you trying to tell me?
When, at the first of the year, when you elect a new chairman and so forth, is there
We don't do it-
continuity?
Okay, so here you are asking.
Succession.
Yeah, succession plan.
Yeah, you have an excellent question there, where it's, at this point with the composition, it could be there and might not be there. So that's a little bit of an issue, because they have 4 elected officials, and once I have the election, might be 4 new people. Same story for us. And we had in the past, the members at large had sat for 2 years with the possibility of sitting for another 2. At this point, that would be the case of David Innes. So the first meeting that we're going to have is going to be the reorganization, the organization meeting. He will let his name stand. We have 1 vacancy, and that's what we need to deal with afterwards. Okay.
So do we just need
Yeah, that's it.
basically, do we need to like an approval and principle?
Recommendation
If you
to
want to make a
council?
recommendation, council, to approve the terms of reference, then we can bring them back next
Basically, in
week.
principle, okay, so, yeah.
I move to recommend that we approve the terms of reference.
With some
With the-
amendments.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
just say in
In
principle.
principle.
In principle.
Yeah, for the Powwow committee.
Okay, all right, so recommend, okay, a motion by Councillor Barnes to approve the terms of reference in
Recommend.
principle. Recommend to council to approve the terms in principle, so we can bring that back to council and perhaps have it retyped so that we have it
With the amendment.
more definitive when
With
it comes back to council. Okay, so all in favor of that? All right, thank you very much. Okay, we do have that A1, which is their work, the Tyler's working on the application, grant application for that, to some funding. And the grant application requires a letter of support from the council, so we did, yeah.
And something as to the funding, that we support the funding in the amount of $5,000.
Support the funding, okay, so we need a, I guess.
Because that money will come from the town, go to the power committee. It's already in the budget. It's a matter of transferring that.
So actually, if we just had a motion to ask administration to draft that letter, and then they can bring it back to council for approval of that. So if I can just have a motion for someone to.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mayor.
I make a motion to direct, to recommend to administration to draft a letter of support for the Power Committee grant application, including the $5,000 budget approved from town.
Okay. Okay, you got that? All right, so all in favor of that motion? Thank you very much. Okay, carried. Okay, that takes care of the powwow. For now, there's one more that will come in camera, just a brief item. But we'll go to 7B, summer staffing levels. So you have that in your package. We had some questions about the pool staffing, and then so Jeff queried our pool director on that, and he says, oh, I've maybe had some second thoughts. So Jeff, do you want to speak to that briefly, and then tell us where we need to, what we need to do?
Without coercion, right?
Well, I reported council the next morning. I said, council, and I said, I know where they're coming from, is concerned about. And he emailed me later in the day and said, gee, I think we might want to have that position there and see how it goes for the summer. So I bring it back to you to have some discussion, but I also brought back, and it was Councillor Barfuss that brought up at the last meeting, to see some of the rationale for why the Historical Society wanted the third person. So there's a letter in there from Diane Barnes, and then Jill's response to Diane for you to review as well. Now, obviously things have changed with the Historical Society, so I don't know exactly what their intent might be for the summer. If that's going to change, or maybe it's status quo, I don't know. Perhaps Councillor Bengry might. Essentially, this would take us back to last year's staffing levels plus one at the museum.
Yeah.
Now, if we get step grants, and if we get even 2 of them, we've almost covered off that additional piece, but I just have no idea whether or not we'll get those. It's to be determined. So I don't want to say we go ahead guaranteeing that, and nor do we make it a contingent position that if we get step grants, we'll look at it, because we won't know till long into the application and hiring process.
The only thing, I went to the Historical Society, and I was quite pleased to see that there is a paying membership that has been, there was a good campaign done by Diane to try to recruit people. And there was quite a few, so they have about 39 members. And I really feel that maybe at this point with 39 members, they have more chance to recruit a volunteer to serve at a certain position. If they had not had 39, I would say, I was position to help them with their needs, because I really feel they have a lot of needs. There definitely is a lot of needs and many positions to be filled. But I don't know that with all the people that are there, that I'm not wondering if they should try to see if among those people there is not somebody that would like to step up.
Councillor Bengry.
Mayor, I know where you're coming from, and I feel the same way. However, just sitting on that historical committee for the last 3 months or 4 months, however long, they're having troubles finding volunteers to even start to do the work that's needed to be done within the museum and so forth.
But they got a good drive, and they brought a lot of new blood.
Yeah, they've got a good drive, but I'll tell you, if they asked me to come in there and volunteer to sit down at the card home for how many hours, that'd be tough. Because what do you do when you're down at the card home, other than hopefully you'll direct them up to the museum, but to sit there and knit, that's basically what you're doing.
But don't you think then it's a little bit much to ask $10,000 of town money to do that?
I was just going to say, I would prefer to see our extra guard at the swimming pool, because that swimming pool is a needed thing in our community. And I really appreciate our operator coming back and saying, I've had second thoughts, and I agree that we need another guard there. And I would prefer myself, even as the committee appointment from this council to sit on the Historical Society, that maybe they need to start generating even more memberships so that they can get that young volunteerism in the group. Right now, there's quite an elderly group.
We have a young one there.
Well,
There's no volunteer that we can count on.
Councillor Edmonds put in hours and hours and hours,
I know,
and he still
and
is.
They are very, and he was recognized and appreciated that.
Dennis?
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw this out to you because I hear it every day. My wife has worked with that group of 39 for some time, and it just has, that group of 39 have always been there, and they're
Burned
well,
out.
not all of them, but most of them. Some of that 39 were recruited just because of the vote. And it was a strong lobby to make a change. I won't say what I really feel. But, just hang on a second, I know, I'm just telling you that with that core group of volunteers that they have had there, Diane has had a very difficult time getting anyone to come to either the card home or the museum to help out. That's why she'd asked for that third person. And if I remember correctly, I thought we voted that it was going to be a third. And now, I didn't know that there was an exception to that.
Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Barnes. I want to be careful when we're considering these issues, and I know it's sensitive because, we only have one budget as a town, but we don't want to have to necessarily say, hey, Historical Society or swimming pool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to pit those two organizations against each other. If the Historical Society this year needs an additional person, let that stand by itself and let it be its own thing, not just because, all of a sudden now we need another lifeguard, we're hooped.
Yeah.
So, just my thinking, and I'll throw it out there, I agree, and I said it at the last meeting, I think we should just at least have in our budget a 10th lifeguard. That makes sense, let's do that, I'm all for that. And then as far as this museum issue, it sounded like in our last meeting, there was sufficient need to have another person there. And so I'm still
It's a safety
moving forward
thing,
with
too.
that. But I recognize it'll change our budget this year over last. But I also remember in the discussion that we had about it, that there was a very specific need this year, and there would be a lot of work that extra person would be expected to do for them, to get them caught up. So
Just make a comment here, because I agree that it should be a separate issue. I mean, we shouldn't be, the fact that they were willing to go less the lifeguard and the fact that they asked for one more is kind of a coincidence, but it really shouldn't be an issue. The fact that they decided maybe we do need the extra lifeguard, I think that's status quo. And I guess the question is that does the Historical Society need it? And the question I ask in my mind right now is, with a change in executive, has it become a moot point until they re-request?
And my point was similar to yours. I think we need to contact the new executive and regarding that employee that we were interested in funding for them as a summer student, and see what their feeling is towards that. New president, new everything, new thinking, new resource. From the project I presented, seems to me they need a lot of help and support. But I'm wondering what their position is. So could we maybe this week before next council contact that the chair of that committee? I don't know if they have a meeting or not.
Yeah.
But try to figure out what his position is and let them know that we are willing to help if needed.
Would that be reasonable to, just to contact the new executive, see if the appetite is still there for a new position? Because like I say, it may be a moot point if, with the change in executive, it's...
Well, there's a new vision, there's a new way to conduct business. We need to understand what that is. We don't know. We understood the past president's vision and how that person would be used. We understood that very well. What we need to know is the direction the same or not?
Okay, we'll just get two more comments, Dennis and then.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, the request for the extra person was discussed at their board level. Am I not right on that, Councillor Bengry?
What's that?
And did not they at a board level discuss the needs already for this summer,
Previous to the AGM.
previous to the AGM? And that's why they presented it.
Do you remember?
You know, I mean, just because you change, doesn't change,
Well, if it was a
doesn't
board,
change what the program is going to be.
if it was a board request,
Mhm.
it never was a formal request. It never was formally
Mhm.
written. And so we went along with what we thought, but is that a formal board request? That's my question.
Yeah, my only other thought on the museum position, because I do recognize these as two separate things. So again, swimming pool, yes, let's do it. Museum, if, as Councillor Bengry mentioned last time we discussed this, if there was any possibility of getting that person, if we have an additional person, maybe to donate a few hours in other areas, such as the Chautauqua event and different things, then that would again help justify that position, so.
But, so we need to understand exactly
Right.
what does
Have that talk
museum
with them,
position
because rather than
is.
knitting, they can be Chautauquaing, and that would be much
Now, they don't
more
just knit it then.
effective. No, I know, I don't think anybody.
They
down
have
there
some
Councillor
good
Evans had a
people.
comment.
Okay, yeah, we'll have that one more then.
I think the wisest thing will be to wait because they haven't put forward a plan for the summer yet.
Well,
And depending on what they do, depends on how many people they have.
okay, yeah.
And
Well,
you are on the board of executive, aren't you?
He's one of the
You are,
directors.
you are on the executive, so
So-
you would have an in for
so
us.
If we were to, just wait, did you say, and see if they'll give it, see if we get a formal request?
The problem is the application needs to be done pretty soon.
Well, we've advertised, we'll take in applications, and if by the time we go to interview and hire, we should know
We should know we'll have the
know
step
what
or
we're
not,
looking
or-
for.
Well, they
Are you
might
talking
say
about the
you're
step
only
grant?
getting two.
Well, right. We'll know, hopefully we know a little bit more by the time we interview, but also we've advertised for 3 museum positions. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, we control how many we hire.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can
Because the ads are out.
just
Okay,
check
all right.
and see if if they still have the appetite for the extra person then?
Okay.
And then you can bring it back to council if they're still.
Well, it's even more than the appetite, is can they justify it?
Yeah, well, that too, I think, yeah.
Because I have appetite and can eat a lot.
Well, sure, no,
Speaking of
that's what I
appetite.
think, okay.
So just a question, are we looking for a recommendation to council on the swimming pool request?
I don't think we need to,
From
do we?
us?
Or
I
do
can-
we?
Well, we had a little discussion about this in the office, that I got thinking about why we even bring this to council in the first
That's right.
place.
Because that's your
That's summer
administration.
staffing, but.
And, yeah,
We're-
it's in the
we're not-
budget.
We're not
Yeah.
It's approved,
micromanaging.
so I could bring back an amended sheet for next council, though.
Yeah.
Being that we've got a motion on it, just,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll stay consistent for the year anyway.
can we just let you do that, bring that
Yeah,
back to the council?
you bet.
Okay.
Could we have a 5-minute break?
5-minute break, yeah, we can do that. You want to make a motion?
I move to have a 5-minute recess.
Okay, Councillor Barnes moves for a 5-minute recess, all in favor? Okay, go for it.
Thank you.
Run.
I did not know.
What are these days you think?